a hall. After running down a corridor, he manages to ever so slightly escape. Roy gets to snapping and snapping and snapping and snapping and snapping. Quite literally, mentally he was broken, but physically he was on timing. Today I have another opportunity to completely eviscerate your eardrums and gouge out your eyes, well, burn out your eyes, with another banger. And you'll understand why I used those two body parts specifically shortly. But y'all remember there was the Mistress and Ishval war in Full Metal Alchemist, right? Well, do you remember how it started? No? Let me remind you. It started when one soldier, on a random Tuesday afternoon at high noon, killed a little girl, broad daylight, in a public square for no reason. Keep that in the back of your mind. This led to an all-out bloodbath, and that led to the death of a ridiculous amount of Ishvalan people and gave us the GOAT appearance of Scar. And when we think about Scar, that brings up somebody else to mind. Y'all know Mahito, right? Current #1 evildoer and transforming transmuter in JJK who has no real reason to do what he does? Yeah, there's somebody else that existed and laid down the blueprint for his existence, and that person was Envy. So obviously we hate Envy, right? But why do we hate Envy, you may ask? This is the part 1 of a 2-part Roy Mustang Blaze composition, essentially, so I have the pleasure of telling you why. He slimed out our guy! Yes, our, as in Roy Mustang, you and I. That man was Mays Hughes. The man who, yes, he may not have gotten the most work done when he was at work in the office building, but at the same time, everybody loved to hear him talk about his loving wife and amazing daughter who always put a smile on his face. It was one of his favorite pastimes, and honestly, it was a nice, almost comedic relief moment, considering the dark themes that the show tended to cover at times. But there's a reason why people say it's a terrible day for Rain, and that comes from the loss of our GOAT. Now, if memory serves us correct, Mays Hughes was one of the few guys that really caught on to the plan. He realized that if you circled every single major battle that was had in recent history on a map, it would end up creating a transmutation circle, which all of the alchemists need, with the exception of Ed, because, you know, he is Full Metal himself, in order to transmute literally anything and use their abilities. Once he realizes this, he knows that he has to let somebody know, and who better to tell than his guy, Roy Mustang, his best pal, the only person that seems to hate putting up with his antics, but still loves him nevertheless. But that's when Lust pulled up on him, and she got to business, immediately injuring him, but he managed to escape out of the room after landing a deadly knife shot through her forehead, pinning her against the wall. So you'd think that Lust was handled, right? Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. He runs down the street and gets to a telephone booth and attempts to call Roy Mustang, but there's a bunch of checks and balances in order to get to the phone line that's in Roy's room. So as he sits there dealing with the operator who took 10,000 years just to get things across, he tells the code to the operator confirms the code, and by the time he finally gets put through, it's too late, because that's when Envy comes into the picture. Now, Envy was a homunculus that meant no good and was up to foul business 25/8. Not just 24/7, no. Even when you don't think there's evil to be done, there was evil to be done. So immediately when Envy pulled up, they were in the form of Lieutenant Ross, who obviously is a trusted military combat operative that Mays Hughes would know really well. But Mays immediately peeps that something's off, claiming that Lieutenant Ross had a mole under her left eye. And Envy, realizing the mistake in the transmuted form that he decided to take, says, "Oh, you know what? Silly me, you're right!" And in front of Mays Hughes adds a mole to his face, therefore completing the Lieutenant Ross transformation. Now Hughes is trying to figure out what to do and what's going on, and tries to prep to throw a knife just to do Envy the same way that he ended up doing Lust, but when he turns back in preparation to throw it, he sees his wife. And that just did something to me, man. If you watched this show and it didn't, I question your sanity and I question your humanity. Again, I'll say it one more time. Envy turned into this man's beloved wife to mess with his mind and stop him from throwing the knife, effectively temporarily putting down Envy, which would allow him to communicate what needed to be told to Roy Mustang. But again, Envy turned into this man's wife. From there, obviously, despite recognizing that that is not his wife, Mays Hughes ended up halting his attack and and just stood in complete confusement and sadness and pain and astonishment. And then Envy decided to do what Envy came to do, which was off Mays Hughes. And as Mays laid in his pool of blood at the bottom of the phone booth and the phone finally connected to Roy Mustang, even Roy could tell what that silence meant. As Mays reached up for the phone, Envy hung it up as Colonel Mustang sat on the other end of the line waiting for his response. And when the phone hung up, he knew something had to have gone terribly wrong, because in no world would Mays Hughes ever call him and not say a joke or tell him about his daughter in a way that would literally annoy him in the way only your best friend can. Now, the next time we see Envy in this crash out mode is when it's time for him to see his day of reckoning, and it would be definitely provided by Roy Mustang. They pull up on the compound with the homunculi, and immediately when he sees Envy, he knows it's time to get down. Dare I say, he wanted nothing better than to get down on Envy. Colonel Mustang wasn't having any of Envy's BS when he turned into Mays Hughes' wife and starts a near psychotic rant about everything under the sun. There was gonna be none of that on Roy Mustang's watch as soon as he admitted that he was the one that killed his boy. So, like any reasonable best friend, Roy immediately lights his head on fire. Eyes, nose, mouth, ears, any orifice you can think of, boom, blazing. And at that point, Envy realized he had to transform in order to hold his own against the GOAT. So he transforms into this huge, massive homunculus form of himself, and Roy decides to immediately light his eyes on fire when he starts chatting shit. Because again, Roy was having none of that. He then lights his entire body on fire, and Envy, realizing that he is no match at this current moment, decides he has to have a little bit of trickery on his side in order to win. So he breaks off part of a pillar with his tail and throws it at Roy while he retransforms into his smaller form and runs down a hall. After running down a corridor, he manages to ever so slightly escape Roy Mustang, who continues to walk down the hall after him. But he turns into Mays Hughes thinking he'll be able to catch Roy by surprise, but that only enrages him more. So as he runs dead at him, Roy lets off 3 different fiery blasts, igniting him in ways that he never imagined were possible, each time going after the full body and then lastly on the face and eyes. And then with a 4th blast, he forces Envy to run off and escape. This leads to Rize meeting with Mustang, or so we thought, because we see Rize up pull on Colonel Mustang, who is about to snap his fingers. But we both know if Mustang was really there in that moment, he wouldn't have even upped it on Rize for 1, or for 2, he would have just let it air out if he thought it was really Envy. So that's what comes next. They start walking down the hall. Hawkeye was really locked in that mode, telling this version of Roy Mustang, when me and Roy are alone, he doesn't call me Lieutenant. He calls me by my real name, Riza. And this was the perfect bait to bring out Envy's other side. Jumping away from Riza, he ends up transforming into his natural self, but just as he ends up roping her up when she unloads a clip into his body, which of course doesn't do much of anything because he's a homunculus, he reaches under the earth and wraps her up before slamming her on the ground, giving her a darn near concussion. Then, when he looks like he's about to finish the job, we see a huge fire blast come down the hallway and light him ablaze. And just like you would imagine it was the GOAT Roy Mustang. But that's not where it starts, that's not where it stops, that's not where it finishes. Because Roy had some more pent-up frustration and aggression for this boy Envy. Roy gets to snapping and snapping and snapping and snapping and snapping. Quite literally, mentally he was broken, but physically he was on timing. You see Envy screaming out, and I can't even lie, Full Metal Alchemist has some of the best voice acting you'll see, especially back in the day when it was originally created. You hear the sheer pain and horror in Envy's voice. Like, listen to dude as he's getting snapped up. And then, when Roy Mustang is finished lighting him ablaze and Envy has been reduced into his natural form, which really looked like a green chameleon mixed with a shark's teeth? Something of the sort. Naturally, he was ugly and hideous. But as he crawls away, Roy Mustang, looking to finish the job, puts his foot all over his body. Then, as he pleads for his life, begging Mustang not to kill him, that doesn't stop Roy. What stops Roy is Lieutenant Riza putting her blick to the back of his head now. And in the moment, I'm like, girl, what is you doing? doing? He's getting the natural get back that he needed. Did we really forget the part where he's standing on the hill crying and he says, it's a terrible day for rain. Yes, the sky is clear. She tells him the sky is clear, but he says, it's a terrible day for rain. And when she sees the lone tear run down his cheek, she said, yes, Colonel, so it is. You had that understanding, girl, so why are you up and pull on him right now in the most critical moment where he needs to stand on business? We then see her trying to reason with him and explain why he doesn't need to do what he's about to do, but that's not enough. That just holds him off until Ed can get there. And once Ed gets there, he flips Envy over towards him and grabs him up. Then he uses the Naruto classic talk no jutsu trying to explain to Colonel Mustang that he doesn't need to do what he really wants to do. Yes, the feeling of getting revenge will be so great, but he cannot effectively lead the military and lead the nation as a whole if he decides to go this far. But we're kind of ignoring the fact that back in the Israeli War, this man Colonel Mustang was slaying people left, right, up, down, north, south, east, west. He was going crazy. I don't think this first justified body that he's about to catch would end up changing him and making him an evil person. If anything, everybody would cheer. He's getting rid of the trash. This man Envy needs to go. And just as the talk no jutsu is working and Colonel Mustang decides to stand down, Envy still decides to chat shit right afterwards. But then explains that the real reason he was the way that he was because he was jealous of humans and that they always have people to stand up for them and to love them and to care for them. And if you thought that was going to be enough to make me think maybe Envy was really just misguided from the beginning, you would be wrong, because I wanted Envy gone today. As soon as he finished giving his little spiel, I said, womp womp, yo Mustang, fry this boy. But of course, Envy was sitting in the hands of Edward Elric, so there was going to be no chance that he would end up getting the best of the MC. So I had to resign myself with the understanding that Envy wasn't going to die. But the show gives us another interesting cop-out, which isn't really a plot flaw in my eyes, by taking Envy and having him pull out his own Philosopher's Stone and essentially give up on life or wasting into nothingness. And that is arguably one of the greatest getbacks in all of anime. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the aftermath of Mays Hughes' death when they were at the military base funeral with his wife and daughter there, standing side by side. Colonel Mustang, Riza, the Elric brothers, everybody, Colonel Armstrong was even there. Everybody that was there mattered and everybody cared about him deeply. He was beloved. And the part that broke me the most, and one of the few anime death moments that really wring out the tears from you, is when his wife tries to shield herself from the pain of watching her husband be lowered into the ground and dirt being placed on him. And the daughter, understandably enough, not recognizing what is going on, begins to complain and whine. And it was the most justifiable sadness that one could imagine hearing in that moment. To this day, I perfectly remember her, and the voice acting was grade A tier 1, none above. Simply asking the mother, Mommy, why are they burying Daddy? Mommy, why are they putting dirt on Daddy? They have to stop. He can't get his work done if they put dirt on Daddy. He said he was behind on work. He can't finish his work here. Mommy, stop them. Tell them to stop. Daddy has work. Or calling back on those memories really just did something to me, man. And that's what made this get back so sweet. And if you made it this far in the video, go on and smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications, and check out the other videos on the channel. But you could also let me know suggestions for other fights and videos you want to see on this channel going forward in the comments below. And as always, yo YC, what you got for me?
Your theme is peace.